Have you ever noticed a video game looking too realistic? In this video, we're gonna go through some games that actually have dead bodies in them, as well as some that could be real but aren't confirmed. Either way, let's get into it. Call of Duty World at War. The Call of Duty franchise is no stranger to being hyper-realistic, making some of the most believable scenarios playable. However, World at War takes it to a new level. The game follows the events that took place during World War II and do a good job at relaying the events accurately, or maybe a little too accurate. During the intro sequence to the game, there's a few videos shown, all of them in black and white. A few in particular are horrific. Clips involve multiple bodies hung side by side, burned corpses lying after combat, mass graves, and many kind of explosions from active warfare. Many people who found out that this was real were outraged and disturbed, saying that it's disrespectful to display such a thing. Others are in some way moved and feel that this was a good way to show awareness, despite how shocking. It adds a sense of realness right as you start the game, which sets the tone immediately and makes the player more mindful. It proves to be an efficient way to get their mind reeling at how damaging war is before they're even playing. Batman, the enemy within. In this game, the body is in a still image. Had it not been for the player named Bro Team Pill, this may never have been recognized as real. The image was taken during a pre-planned assassination on Andrei Karlov, a Russian ambassador to Turkey, carried out by a Turkish police officer. In the original, he stood proud with a murder weapon in hand and Karlov lying at his feet. The murder was set in a public space to ensure it was seen, and because of that, the case became internationally famous. The image itself was taken by a photographer, Bernan Uzbalici, who went on to win top prize at the 2017 World Press Photo Contest thanks to it being quote-unquote iconic. So how did this end up in a Batman game of all places? Speculation suggests that it was photoshopped in last minute by someone on the game's art team who had no idea of the image's origin. The image that appears on the in-game display is edited, but the body is very recognizable side by side. An honest mistake or a sinister joke that an unnamed artist wanted to slide in. The comment released by Telltale after the outrage this caused was very apologetic, and they ensured they will higher standards as to never make such a mistake again. It just goes to show that even bigger companies are capable of such scandalous accidents. Law and Order Double or Nothing. This game also includes an image of a real crime. The 2003 game Law and Order has a disturbing image on a corkboard, which isn't easy to overlook. A game focused on law showing pictures of a real kidnapping seems a little messed up. The moment captured on film was James Bulger, aged 2 years, being led away by his two 10-year-old kidnappers and eventual murderers, John Venables and Robert Thompson. After leading him away from his mother unnoticed, they proceeded to torture and assault James extensively in a multitude of ways, leaving him with 42 injuries. Both were sentenced indefinitely but got released 8 years later. Over the coming years, John Venables was in and out of prison for possessing and distributing a large amount of inappropriate media involving children. The actions behind such a photo cannot be taken lightly, which makes it very disturbing to be in a video game. The game was recalled from stores and sales were halted after James's mother attacked the game, which is entirely understandable. Spokesman for the game claimed they had no idea that the image had such a history and state they wouldn't have published it if they had. Whether that's true or not remains a mystery. Hong Kong 97. Hong Kong 97 is an older game that has a dark secret hidden in plain sight. The gameplay consists of average 90s shoot 'em up and invasion set in China. As you play through, you may notice the end screen being a little too realistic looking. There's been many theories as to what the image in the game is actually from. Many believing it's the body of a boxer who committed self-delete, but the reality is somewhat worse. According to research from many online sources, this body is most likely an unidentified civilian that was killed in 1992 in the Bosnian War. People have worked hard to find where these pieces of media originated from, and it's likely to be from a Japanese film in the 90s, and then used again in a Brazilian Mondo film named Arquivos da Morte, Guerra Civil, which is Archives of Death, Civil War in English. No matter where this image originated from, it remains one of the creepiest end screens I've ever come across. The game over screen during a video game playthrough has never felt more real. Sad Satan. Before researching for this video, I've never heard of this game, but now I don't think I will ever be able to forget it. This has to be the most disturbing game we will cover, so be warned. Sad Satan was a downloadable game that had the internet reeling over the disturbing images found within, and the suspected malware viruses that were found by unsuspecting players. Multiple versions of the game were made, and the one we are focusing on is the most disturbing one found on a link published on 4chan. The suspected creator of the worst game copy of Sad Satan was named Gary Graves, who used ZK as his user. Gary Graves was also arrested due to to his girlfriend coming forward after finding Gary's phone full of cheese pizza, but this was not related to the game itself. The gameplay in Sad Satan is nothing but walking down a series of corridors in first person, while the screen shows different images. The images include, but aren't limited to, a truck collision accident containing a child, Richard Cottenham's murder victims, Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, Satomi Miyazaki, and straight up cheese pizza. All of the named people are known to have committed very disgusting crimes, and to save your ears, it's up to you to Google them if you would like to. Just know that they are disturbing. This game raised questions such as, did it originate from the dark web? Who was the real creator if it was not ZK? How many versions of Sad Satan exist? Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 contains some of the most realistic looking imagery and macabre tones compared to many horror games. This game, however, goes from realistic looking to blatantly real. Through the game, you come across a burnt corpse in a few different places, but most likely during the sewer level. The corpse is almost a carbon copy of the original, which is actually a real body that was found by a Twitter user that found it from a medical textbook. While it's almost exactly like the real body, the game developers at Valve decided to swap the real life right eye and put it on the left side of the corpse. Valve have not confirmed nor denied this theory, but most people online seem to agree after verifying it themselves. However, I warn you, if you decide to check this out yourself, it's not for the faint of heart. The Museum of Anything Goes. I've never seen a video game that could actually make me vomit until now. The Museum of Anything Goes, released back in 1995, as a whole is a weird game. You explore a museum, and if you happen to click on a painting, you will see the following events: a man falling from the sky, his funeral, and then a white coffin appears with the phrase, "Don't click on the grave, you'll be sorry," written below it. If you decide to ignore these words of warning, a video will play of a man handling an unknown corpse on a metal table. The video is choppy and it's hard to tell what is really going on, seeing as it's somewhat low quality, but it's definitely disgusting. There aren't many distinguishing features aside from color and shape, so people online are in agreement that it's most likely a pig, or part of a pig at least. Despite that seeming normal, as if it was a butcher, the video has a sinister quality, no doubt leaving many feeling uneasy if they had the unfortunate opportunity to see it. Doom. The Doom franchise is well known and loved, but did you know about this potential corpse being featured as a in-game sprite? Many speculations as to what this sprite's origin story is have popped up on the internet. One in particular was mentioned a lot over a few different forums. The image of Benito Mussolini, leader and founder for Italian fascism, being hung alongside his close followers is thought to be the inspiration behind the in-game visual, obviously edited and colored to fit the game's style. This has not been proven and many don't agree due to it not being entirely accurate, just very similar. A more believable explanation is that the sprite was G.I. Joe figures, posed as hanging bodies. The shiny plastic texture is visible on the final design, and the coloring of the overall design fits very well with the figurines. This alone leaves little room for another theory being true. After this knowledge grew in popularity, it eventually led to the debunking of the Mussolini theory, the Callisto Protocol. Unlike many games in this video, the Callisto Protocol has no confirmed bodies within its final published game. Many video games have horror aspects, gore aspects, and some generally gross media. It's no shock that the final imagery we see while playing is based from or inspired from real life images. As uncomfortable as that is, the developer in charge of the creative teams, Chris Stone, admitted to PC Games End that we found ourselves looking at real life examples of horror and gore, which is something most of the creative team found not so fun. However, Chris then goes on to describe how beneficial such research was in making the game reach the level of realism they inspired to make. So in light of how disturbing looking at real graphic images is, the game gained quality it may not have otherwise. Postal 2. Compared to some of the previous games, this image we're talking about for Postal 2 is believed to be staged by the developers. On a corkboard there's a few posters, the clearest one being Victim of the Week. The picture is a low quality body laying on the bed, blood pooling around it. The studio responsible for the game was smaller at the time of the game's release, making it very possible that this potential corpse is in fact part of the development team. In many other instances, most members of Running with Scissors production teams have been featured as game textures. The studio is known to be raunchy and a little out there, which makes makes it seem more than likely. There has been no confirmation of any real body being used, but hey, who knows, maybe it's real. Mario3.exe. Mario3.exe quickly rose to fame among the general gaming community due to the creepypasta aspects within it. A few popular YouTubers made videos on it. Under the cozy and familiar franchise of Mario, this game has some underlying darkness. The following images are shown as jump scares during the game and each have their own origins. The most notable is a heavily disfigured face, which some speculate to be an image of a self-delete from a medical journal. However, my own opinion is that it looks very similar to the autopsy image of Benito Mussolini after the mob desiccated their bodies. Another is the corpse of an animal that is big enough to be possibly a deer. The final, most disturbing, is an image of someone using a large blade to cut off the head of a turtle. This game is definitely trying to be edgy rather than mysterious, but that does not make it any less gross. The Curse of Yutaho. Similar to Postal 2, the developers for the Curse of Yutaho are heavily involved in the unsettling glitch we're gonna look into. While playing, it's possible to come across an error screen that ties in very well with the actual story and theme of the game. The screen is covered with Japanese characters that grow in intensity and end up taking over the entire screen. Online translators have concluded that it's mostly computer ramblings, except from a few sentences that stick out, some of which are, "I will kill you," "please please stop," and "help me, help me." These are of course creepy in their own right, but this glitch goes further, with a very bold image showing the face of a woman with closed eyes in the eerie black and red light. There's no evidence as to who is in this image, however the game may have the answer within. The protagonist's mother is dead. Could this woman be a visual representation of this, or something worse? The original Dead Space. The developers of Dead Space decided that for a menu screen, they would include very graphic images and videos of a decomposing goat corpse. Game artist and director Glenn Schofield went into detail during an interview about the process behind the goat. The crew were responsible for purchasing the slaughtered goat and pulling it apart and toying with it while recording their actions. This footage would then be added into the game's menu sequence, which is all messed up. It may have been to show what happens during the game, to tie in with the theme of death and corruption that the game is orientated around. It makes me wonder if maybe the idea to use a real human instead of a goat ever crossed any of their minds, and what may have happened if they decided to use one. The Hospital. The Hospital quickly became rather well known for featuring gore, unlike some other titles we've covered. This was all thanks to the YouTuber Markiplier for uploading a video on the game without realizing that 2 of the jump scares actually contained real images of skinned faces and bodily harm. For a long while, people hadn't realized that the unsettling images were actually real. Once one person did, it snowballed, and people have confidently said that they have found them on several gore websites. While these have no confirmed origins, and the developers of the game have released no official statement as to the reasons they are in the game, it goes without saying that it's disturbing nonetheless. Markiplier's video has since been removed, which only helps to verify that they are most likely real. Otherwise, what would be the need to take it down? Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead has some deep-seated controversy that's very similar to the before-mentioned Callisto Protocol. The developers for horror games usually have to research unsettling imagery to get a grasp for the designs they make, but this can be a double-edged sword, especially when it takes a toll into personal lives of the employees. The imagery shown in Left 4 Dead is renowned for the scare factor, which makes it not so surprising that being around a scary image day in and day out, as you strive to make it scary for a wide audience of people, can affect you mentally, even more so when you are looking into real gore and real horrific accidents to try and replicate that into your work. Additionally, Left 4 Dead 2 used real pictures of potato skins and housing insulation to adapt into textures for gore related stuff. Goes to show how thought out game design is. So anyways, that's all the titles we're going to be covering in this video. However, feel free to comment down below if you would like to see more like this, and any game titles that are worth making a part 2 for. Don't forget to like and consider subscribing for more unsettling content. Goodbye.